As we call the meeting to order. First order of business to act on the agenda.
I move that we act on the agenda as written.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Act on the minutes.
I move we accept the minutes as written.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, public comment. Any public comment here?
I can chime in now?
You sure can.
Okay, I'm coming to see about the status of Steinley Road, because I got a piece of property that's on the Chester side.
Yeah.
And see if I can go down through the town road there without creating any problems with the town. It's about 900 feet, I think, from where you are down to my property.
Yeah, too bad it would bother.
What's that?
That's why that would bother.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll double check for you. Hopefully I won't have to use it anyways, but
Yeah.
just wanted to see what my options were.
It's class 4,
Yeah,
so.
okay. What happens, like, I noticed some of them, they're got a status of trail. Does that change anything for access?
Trails, no motorized vehicles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you can still have access for logging.
Yeah, but when they classify it as a legal trail, right? That's what they
Yeah.
cut theirs. That's just to maintain the town right away, but it has its own rules. But that's still, we decided that was still a class 4 road though.
okay.
It'd be really tough to get down through there right now.
I don't wanna have to
Yeah.
do it, but, I don't wanna get shut off, whatever, either, so.
Yeah, they had a request to throw that,
What's that?
we had a request to throw it up.
Yeah, I know you didn't come that time, but I stopped and spoke to Janet a few weeks later, and she told me that you guys had kept it as a road, so
Yeah.
I just, I was to fix it up, for access, I just thought I'd double check before I did anything,
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's good information for me to know that somebody on the other end is very interested. But if we were going to do anything, we would have had to have a hearing anyway. Yeah, but this is good that
they
you
said
came
they
and
would
spoke up.
protect it too, the O'Neills, when I talked to them about it, 'cause I said that was my only concern and stuff, but I don't know, is there special language where you go from one town to the other?
Yeah.
There
You
is.
have to get both select boards together,
Yes.
have a joint
Okay.
meeting and both agree to throw it up.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's all I wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Good to see you.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya.
Good night.
Yeah.
And the new business lister update. Yeah. Evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay. I am here tonight to reply to your email. First, I want to tell you a bit about myself. Some years back, we had a Board of Civil Authority for a very high-end home in Summit Ridge. The development up towards Ludlow. The lawyer complimented the listers, who happened to be Leo and I, for doing a very fine job with the case. He said that he had to agree with us. This is not common in lawyer-lister relationships when they are on opposing sides of an issue. So getting a compliment from a lawyer is a pretty big deal. Another case that we had went to the state appraiser. In that case, the state appraiser ruled against us, even though the appellant's lawyer brought an assessor with inaccurate information and comparison information that was not similar to the property in question. I took the case to the next level and then on to the director of property valuation and review. He set up a private meeting with him to go over the particulars with us. It was Leo, a select board member, our district advisor, and myself. He was very grateful that we went to him because he said that people complain but never come to the source that can help them. He in turn took this to the legislature. This took time. Finally, a new statute of law was born. If a town loses a case before the state assessor, through no fault of theirs, the state will pay the 3 years of taxes that the town would lose because of that case loss. This, of course, benefits every town in Vermont. Grievance is an issue every year. I decided to put a notice on the back of the change of appraisal form that we send each homeowner that has any change in value that year, which puts the burden of proof on the homeowner to prove that the listers are wrong. Our grievances have dropped considerably and to none this year. I'm sure you know that the listers have a very demanding job maintaining the grand list. The grand list is the wealth of the town. This is just a brief outline of what listers do and are responsible for. There is another document that has greater detail, but this has some basics, okay? I'm not going to go through that. Okay, now I'm going to read my email to you. Dear Chris, Rich, Susan, Melissa, and Robin, I am not happy about my recent hourly increase in remuneration. Last year, when I realized that Jonathan and I were compensated equally, I did not understand how my 15 years of experience and education as a lister was not a factor in the decision that you made. The lister pay schedule in Andover has always been low on the scale compared to other towns. The last raise was 10%, which would appear to be a good thing, until you look at the fact that I am earning less than the person I have been training. Again, my experience in education, now 16 years, means nothing. I'm earning less than the person I'm training. Is this age discrimination or gender discrimination? I hope not. I have been dedicated and loyal to the town of Andover. I feel less appreciated than ever before. Sincerely. Now to your email to me. Dear Fran, I am very sorry that you feel unappreciated. We certainly do appreciate all the work you've done over the years. The work Leo and yourself have done is largely unseen to the public view, and when it is seen, it is often confrontational by nature. You have shown great perseverance in staying at it this long. We very much appreciate that fact. Those of our generation have to admit that the younger generation is more efficient with computers, and Jonathan is an example of this. His ability to swap back and forth and help out with clerk duties is also a plus. His knowledge of town history and his familiarity with the town records are very valuable assets. You yourself stated that you were pretty content with a 10% raise. Are we being unfair to you? Is it wrong for us to pay someone else what their talents deserve? I would say your world would be a happier place if you never pressed Jonathan to share his salary information with you. Respectfully, Christopher Plum, Select Board Chair, on the behalf of the Select Board, Town of Andover, Vermont. Now I'd like to go over some passages in that email. Those of our generation have to admit that the younger generation is much more efficient with computers, and Jonathan is an example of this. I am very proficient with computer programs. I know all the programs that we use daily. They change constantly, the newest one especially. We use Nemrick, Microsoft, Apex, and Vermont Pi as our main programs. Now I want to go to Vermont law. Unlawful employment practice. It shall be unlawful employment practice except where a bona fide occupational qualification requires a person of a particular race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, ancestry, place of birth, age, crime victim status, or physical or mental condition. For any employer, employment agency, labor organization, or person seeking employment to discriminate between employees on the basis of sex by paying wages to an employee of one sex at a rate less than the rate paid to the employees of the other sex for equal work that require equal skill, effort, and responsibility is performed under similar working conditions. An employer who is paying wages in violation of this section shall not reduce the wage of any other employee in order to comply with this subsection. Also, another piece of that section, an employer may pay different wage rates under this subsection when the differential wages are made pursuant to a seniority system, which does not apparently exist. Next in your email, his ability to swap back and forth and help with clerk duties is also a plus. How does, quote, his ability to swap back and forth, help out with clerk duties, unquote, make Jonathan, who is a new lister, more valuable than I am with 16 years of experience? He is still being trained and completes tasks under my supervision. The next sentence in your email. His knowledge of town history and his familiarity with town records are very valuable assets. I was the one who came to this board and championed Jonathan. You need not sell him to me. Leo and I asked to change from electing to hiring listers since Jonathan lives in Chester. Okay, another sentence in your email. I would say your world would be a happier place if you never pressed Jonathan to share his salary information with you. Under the same statute of law, no employer may do the following: require as a condition of employment that an employee refrain from disclosing the amount of his or her wages or from inquiring about or discussing the wages of other employees. And then in another section of the law, under general provisions, access to public records. As used in this chapter, public record or public document means any written or recorded information, regardless of physical form or characteristics, which is produced or acquired in the course of public agency business. Individual salaries and benefits of, and salary schedules relating to elected or appointed officials and employees of public agencies shall not be exempt from public inspection and copying. In conclusion, when I was on the telephone with Melissa, since I hadn't received your email, I went over some things with her, and then she asked me, "What do you want?" And my answer to her was, quote, "I want respect," unquote. I told the lawyer that I consulted that I never air dirty laundry in public. His response was that this is not dirty laundry and people should know about it and that I should speak to you in person. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I just have a question for Jeanette. Is this go into an executive session type thing, or are we doing it appropriately?
I have something to say.
Oh, okay.
I completely respect that you came to talk to us about this, but I don't believe for the select board, this is me, maybe Chris, I'm wrong. I don't know that this is something that we should be doing in a public forum.
That's what I was saying.
So I'm saying I don't feel comfortable with that.
I am not asking you for an answer tonight. I'm not asking you for to discuss it tonight. Just go over what I said, understand the law, and understand respect.
So I will say one thing. So what do you want?
What does,
Respect, what
Okay.
do you want?
how is it respectful?
Nope, I don't want to.
How?
What would your
Respect me
outcome
by
be?
paying me more than
Okay.
Jonathan for my experience and my time.
That's all I needed. I just wanted to know what it was you wanted. Okay.
That's it. Since you can't lower his salary, I'm just saying, according to the law, you have to go about it in a way that is different than it would have been. That's all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
can leave this here if you want it. Or you can leave it there and I'll get it when I'm back in the office.
Road reclassification discussions from Markham Mountain Road.
So this is just another one of our roads that has one property out, correct? That's, and there's same discussion as the Gulf Road South as I'm assuming that it's gonna be asked to be plowed and it's not currently
No,
maintained.
regularly.
It's not maintained every storm as it was a camp at the end of the road that was gated off, that wasn't used after November, I don't believe.
A couple times they had parties up there in the
Yeah.
winter.
There's a new owner in that case, I think.
Correct.
And how far up the road does it go? Does it go all the way to the camp?
No,
That's not right.
Well, the road stops at a
Yeah.
cul-de-sac, which is
but
not really, I mean, it's just a turnaround.
have we heard from that owner requesting anything? Or we're just thinking, we're just
Being proactive.
contemplating our situation?
Yeah.
it's another one to discuss as, I believe when these come up, there's the discussion of how much it's gonna take to make these roads to that, state. To put them correct, that's what why we're going to that next, for that site visit is that one is impossible to bring. We have heard that, it is just, there's not enough land there to make that road to class 3.
The Gulf Road.
Correct.
But if we
This
have-
one is not as bad, but it is similar. It is not just gonna be a road that you can just start maintaining. It's gonna take work.
and it isn't, tell me, is it our responsibility to maintain it beyond what it's already classified as? If it
No, not
isn't,
beyond, it's already classified as a 3.
it is.
So they
Yeah,
can,
it's just that the owner hasn't been using it and it was sold, so we don't know what a new owner might request.
It's plowable, but it doesn't really meet the width specs.
How did we decide did we did one of us research all the roads in town and just kind of stumble on that one? Or is there a list of all such roads?
Yeah, Charlie's got one. Jenny's others in it.
And the last two that you've talked about have floated to the top because they have new owners who are potentially expecting it to be maintained in the winter, and it never has been. Nor is it up to standards of a class 3 road. And it made sense to Charlie that it be looked at now before they've done anything different with the building that exists at the end of that road. It's currently a camp that can't be lived in the winter. But it looks like there might be plans in place to upgrade it and do different things in there.
So would you be recommending that we do a site visit there along with the other one, or just kind of?
the only reason for a site visit is if somebody recommends it be reclassified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And how far up the road does it go? How far is the
Is it-
roads?
Half mile,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it can't be
it's a long road, it's a long ways up there.
half mile probably.
That the town does have, that owns? Okay, because I've been up there, so I'm just trying to,
I mean,
I'm trying to think in my
the
head which.
snowmobile trail crosses it
Right.
at the very end where the town turns around. That's the snowmobile trail in the winter.
The town owns land on both sides of it all the way in.
Correct.
So the town maintains it up to the snowmobile trail at this time?
But like Chris said, it's not a every storm 2-inch type of deal because there's nobody out there. The only house there's no other driveway out there because the residents at the end of it, both of them have access off Middletown Road. The 2 houses on both sides of Middletown, Markham Lane.
Once you cross the brook, the town owns the land. All the way to
trying to look for
turnaround.
Middletown
Go
Road,
on.
So it's this. Right, Chris, all the way over here at the edge of this Andover Town Forest, it says?
Yeah,
Are there other landowners over here that might,
That's the other side of Middletown Road.
I'm sorry, are there, wait, where's
This-
Markham?
So this is
Oh, are there
Middletown
other
and this is
land?
Markham.
The landowners are right here.
Okay.
The rest of both sides of this road are owned by the town,
Okay.
except for this very beginning, which is Hills and Renfro's old
Right.
house. I apologize, I don't know the owner's new name of that house,
Right,
but
and the other places.
and they both have driveways off of Middletown Road.
Right, so there's no question of somebody wanting to have a driveway up in here or something?
No, there's no.
Okay, there's
town owns
no,
it.
there's no pathway forward for that,
Unless the town sells the land.
right? Okay,
But there's a camp at the end.
yeah,
But what
yeah,
Charlie's talking about is this road is still classified as a class 3. If they
Right.
build a house up here and they ask for this road to be maintained, it has to be brought up to those specs that we're gonna talk about next site visit.
Right.
Which you're gonna see are very time consuming
Right. And
and
expensive.
expensive. That goes along with that too.
And because it had to be widened.
Widened and the ditches have to be brought up to what the state says.
So if we were to have a site visit and a hearing, then that owner would be invited and, yeah.
Everybody here that abuts this road, which most of it's the town, it would just most likely be this new owner and these two at the end.
And if it were brought up to specs, because the people at the end wanted it brought up to specs, everyone would have the right to travel that road.
Everybody has a right to travel it right now.
I know,
Absolutely.
but it.
And they would if we did,
right.
if we declassified it to class 4, everybody could still drive up to where that road ends and turn around, just
Unless you
because
were-
it's,
Declassify it to.
well, no, it's there, you're not gonna take it below 4, being that it's a, I wouldn't assume, but I guess somebody
Access to the
could.
town.
Yeah, the town needs access to its property too. The idea isn't to declassify it from a road, I don't believe anybody had that idea. I think it was just to declassify it to a road, a class 4 that wouldn't be maintained in the winter. And then the specs on a class 4 road are a lot different.
Right. Is there a possibility that you can declassify a portion of it?
We just talked about that with Steinley Road. That was brought up.
You can't take a piece out of the middle.
Yeah. But you couldn't start like it, at one end of it where it meets Middletown Road and then stop at, a more feasible.
Really, to access the town's land as far as logging purposes, is all you gotta do all the way to the end.
Makes sense, yeah,
One place to put a header in is right at the top.
right?
Yep.
So I mean, class 4, not a trail. My suggestion is let's wait till we see how this one goes.
I think so, and talk to Charlie and see what he thinks, because
Charlie thinks it should be declassified. Chris and I all had an email from his, but
well, that's good. No, that's good to know, because I
if
know
you
it's
wanna invite him so he can go through all these things with you, if that would be helpful. You could urge him to attend.
I've asked him to attend the site visit at Old Gulf Road, so we can keep this on the agenda and ask if he can come to the meeting after also. We
Right.
could discuss it with him
That's a
there.
good
That
idea.
way it's, everybody can hear this.
The part of Old Gulf Road that comes out down below Lovejoy, that's just like a ancient road, a trail category now, probably.
It's a legal trail.
I think it's town road is, you can't route out. Road Commissioner's report. Other than Charlie hasn't heard a word on the loader. Put more hours on the old one, so.
Yep.
No big deal.
And their generator's done now, finally.
I believe so. It's just, it's hooked up, I'm not sure everything's buried yet. But gas goes over.
How's the sand hauling going?
They're pretty well done.
I think they're done.
They're done? Good. Awesome.
7 trucks on one day.
7?
Yeah,
Yeah, that'll get it here quick.
and Josh and 6 other ones.
And sometimes they were all here at once.
Next to all the cat Bs and which of the cat As, none.
Yep, Cat A, I submitted, so what we have to start with is there's a whole series of questions to be answered in as much detail as possible. That part's been submitted. I submitted the spreadsheet that itemizes what contractors were used, how much they charged, and what equipment they used. And there's a tab for all the materials that were used. So Cat A was any kind of debris removal. So there wasn't necessarily, we didn't purchase material necessarily for that, but we used a couple of contractors to take debris away from flooded locations. So we had to document where it came from and where it went and how much of it there was. So I said to Charlie, if you told me 10 years ago I would be calculating the cubic yards of every truck within 50 miles of here, I would have told you were crazy. So we got a rough number, I got that submitted, and I started scanning invoices to our liaison. So once he has everything that he needs, he then sends it on to the next step. Our Cat B stuff, which was the emergency work that was done in the first 2 or 3 days, has been sent on to the next step, and that's where there are 5 different organizations who look through all of it and ask a lot of questions. And Cat C is the bulk of the rest, so now we have to start over again with that same detailed list of questions in the FEMA portal and do a spreadsheet for every road is considered a project unless there are some that were small enough that we could combine a few roads. So every one of those is a project, so every one of those has a set of questions, and every one of those has a separate spreadsheet for contractors, materials, our equipment, and our labor attached to it.
Lost upon. Talking to Julie from Chester, she said that they're looking into an app for the guys' phones that puts the GPS location on the photograph when they take it.
Oh, that would be huge.
It would. $8 a month.
Sounds like a worthwhile
I would say
investment.
that sounds worth it.
This for Charlie's phone.
Yeah, I think that'd be worth looking into for that.
Or any grants. You know, everybody wants GPS coordinates for what you're doing, you apply for a grant. So,
That would help with the grants and aid thing too.
yeah, it would. Ditch work. You want where you start and where you stop.
Yeah.
That's about it. Let's see if it's holding up. Old business.
Is school board stuff old business? What,
Are you all business, sir?
I think it's correspondence.
oh,
right?
correspondence? I see.
You're back there, we need to put
But
you
we're
somewhere
close.
here.
Now we can jump down there to Scott.
What's that?
Bring it in.
What do you want to know?
Explain your sheet a little bit.
My sheet? If I have it in front of me, will I explain it to you?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Here.
So you can take them apart, it makes it easier. So, page just says GMUSD enrollment with my chicken scratch on it,
Yep.
saying last year and 9/27/23. That would be this one right here.
Oh, okay.
And then this one right here.
I don't think we have one down here.
Here, take, yeah.
So this is the cost
He's
of,
talking about this right
Yeah,
here.
I saw it earlier.
Oh, alright.
this is the cost of it last year per student.
Where, do you know?
Oh, right here on the end, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you took that one, okay.
Cost.
Oh, okay, I see,
Last
okay.
year.
This is
Okay.
last year, this is
Okay.
this year's numbers per school, okay? That's per student, that's without any special ed. Special ed is paid by Two
Just like
Rivers, not
3,000
by
higher.
Green Mountain.
We have 3,000 and then Green Mountain is 22, 26. So yeah, about 3,000 without the special education.
And this is Ludlow's, which I'll separate, so I think it's the only blank page you have. This is Ludlow's cost, just to compare all schools in the Two Rivers, just so everybody's aware. Which is right there, yep, and that's this year's. So. It's just showing basically that there's one school, Cavendish, that's substantially higher per student, because there's less students.
Right, so
And
it's
the
more
teachers
expensive.
are more aged, I guess I would say,
Oh, yeah.
so they get paid
More
more.
seniority.
Yeah,
Well, 28,000 to 31,000.
yeah.
So is the point of this that if Cavendish Elementary School kids went with Mount Holly and Ludlow, it would save everybody a lot of money, or
We don't know yet. That was that email I sent to everybody.
Right.
So we had a meeting, myself and the vice chair, Adrian, Baltimore rep, with Lauren Fearman and Cheryl Hammond, who is the business lady. And we asked for information about what it would cost if Cavendish left our side of Two Rivers and went to Ludlow, Mount Holly, and how would it affect both towns, or both sides of the river. And her response was what you got. She wants us to put to vote in a whole school board meeting to get those numbers.
Yeah, that's not helpful. Horribly.
So at a school board meeting, you guys will vote as to whether the numbers could be
Hopefully,
released?
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
because,
I mean, my opinion, I'll say it, I don't care on camera. If a town wants info on
Yeah.
cost, a town should get info on cost.
that was
No matter
what I was thinking.
Especially on a shared, we're all on
Right.
the same.
Some of the expense in Cavendish, though, might be shared staff and whatnot with Chester, right? With Chester, Andover.
Well, I mean, we all pay in, but I'm trying to figure out what the numbers will be for Andover separate, Chester separate, Baltimore separate.
So that you know what percentage
So we
are
know
we kicking in.
everything. Yes,
If-
that's
if-
what I wanna know.
If, I think the question is if we have, say, this is a hypothetical number, but say we only have 40 children and we're gonna pay as if we had 300 children. That's, seems steep.
And if Cavendish can go to Ludlow and it benefits Ludlow, Mount Holly, and doesn't hurt us, why wouldn't we do it? Plus, in doing that, I was telling Chris earlier, we don't have a seat on the Two Rivers board. We are the only town that does not have a seat.
We're just
Why
kind
do
of
we
lumped
not?
in.
Why don't we?
Because there's 4 towns in our Green Mountain board, and there's only 3 seats on the Two Rivers. So Andover doesn't have one, but
Andover's just
but
lumped in.
Ludlow has 2, and Mount Holly has 1 on the other side. There's 6 seats total.
And we don't know if people in Cavendish, if they're kindly disposed towards this, or if they don't care, or if it's a big deal, or
They know. I mean, this is all part of the reconstruction meetings that we're gonna start having soon. So these numbers gotta come forth anyway.
Right.
I'm just trying to get it going so that when we have our meeting, I can be like, here we go.
The number,
You know,
right.
let's figure this out. What's gonna work good for all towns?
Right.
Well, yeah, and do people in Cavendish want to close their school?
They don't want it, I don't
Right.
think they, but they might wanna jump over to the other side of the river. You know, so,
Oh, you mean they wouldn't have
They
to
wouldn't have
close the school in Cavendish? They could just somehow,
possibly, yeah.
they
It's all
could keep
possibility.
it going,
Everything's a possibility.
but like work it out with those
Yeah.
other 2 towns. Interesting.
We gotta have numbers.
Thank you.
And then this stuff is a lot of people are asking what Two Rivers pays to have the Fletcher farm. It's $2,000 in rent, and then it's $37,000 total with everything in, heat and everything, but it's divided by 2, so we pay half of that.
And
Our board pays half, and then
Oh, okay.
Ludlow pays half.
And the subtext to that being that we do have room in the Cavendish School or Green Mountain or somewhere to house those facilities without
There
having
could
to
be.
rent something else.
I can't speak on that.
But you said he's just presenting the numbers.
I'm just
Yeah.
presenting numbers because people have asked for this number, so I asked and got it.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, and if any questions or anything you guys want, just email me and I'll try my best to get it. Okay.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
sir.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Happy birthday, Scott.
Your son was very nice yesterday.
Was he?
He stopped at my handicap uncle's and jump-started his bull.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Which one was it? Was it Curtis? That does not surprise me one bit. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a kind of a question. After we do correspondence, can I request that we would do an executive session for just a few minutes before we adjourn?
I was wondering if that was.
Yeah, I was wondering what
Can
we
we
were
do
gonna
that?
do
Can we
about
vote
that.
to do that? Not this second, I mean, we can do correspondence, but then before we adjourn, then we're not keeping them here necessarily. But I think we should.
Yeah.
And can we invite Jeanette into it if we wanted to? Cause she might be able to pull numbers for us quickly. You need something? Or should it just be us?
Yeah, it wants to, you wanna be in on the executive session, Jeanette?
I think any numbers that you might need, I can either give you ahead of time, but I think,
Okay.
I'm not sure that the discussion doesn't need to be broader than
Yeah, I think so.
numbers,
Right.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
and should not include me.
okay.
Okay. I actually have a set of, never mind.
Yeah, no.
Financial audits, we gotta do those. Yes.
Oh yeah, there's a contract in there that just need the official last 2 pages done.
Big wood stacking hot face. Big wood stacking hot face. You know when you're out in the cool air all day? Mm-hmm. There's two different places.
Another copy of the
to sign this.
school numbers, would somebody else want a copy or not have one?
Yes, I have one. I don't know if Chris had one.
That's-
Yeah, you
They
can
have
have it,
one.
Chris.
He said he already.
Oh, I would take one. I didn't really have a chance to really.
last one. So could I ask you to pull a few numbers for us before?
Yes, and,
Just up through
Yeah,
correspondence.
yeah, correspondence first.
so I emailed everybody the proposal from Tom Bursey Designs. Did everyone have a chance to look at that? And thoughts? So the proposal is to do an ADA assessment, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So his firm is one of 3 firms that were chosen by the state of Vermont as state contractors, which means they've been vetted through the state system and that we can use them if we so choose. I reached out to all 3 and he's the only one who got back to me. One of them, well, that's not true. 2 out of the 3 got back to me. One said that they were having somebody was having family issues and they wouldn't be able to take on the work. So this is the proposal that Mr. Bursey sent. Getting an ADA assessment is a small part of that larger municipal energy resilience program grant, which would give us money to make huge strides in weatherizing all 3 buildings. I did apply to have them look at all 3. They don't know until they see who applies and how many buildings they apply for, how much we might actually get. But Andover fits the scope of the purpose of that grant very well. So they really encouraged us to apply to have all 3 buildings looked at. Obviously the one hemorrhaging the most energy is the garage. But anyway, part of getting that grant and making those changes are that you need to get an ADA assessment. So I applied for what's called a mini grant to support the cost of getting the ADA assessment. So we already have $4,000 to help pay for that. The other $4,200 would come out of the ARPA fund. So it's not general fund dollars. So we have the money to support getting it done. We get that done, and to implement what they suggest, we can then also use up to 20% of that bigger energy resilience grant to actually implement the things that this firm may or may not find that we need to do. We know there are gonna be obvious things that need to be done.
Yeah.
The back door of the town hall is crying out to be fixed.
Then it seems like we should do it.
Well, we also have to think about the funding because 20% is 20%, it's not 100. So we'd have to come up with the other 80.
No, so you can use up to 20% of your MERP grant to cover the ADA, and I believe the language in the MERP grant is that I don't believe you have to implement all of the ADA things that are being suggested. I don't know if they would help us prioritize which things are the most important. That I'm not clear about. But right now we have the money between these 2 sources, the grant and the ARPA, to get it done, and then it could be decided what to do from there.
And we aren't obligated to have to do the work. Am I correct?
We are going to have to do something because we have this bigger grant that we have already been approved for to get this energy resilience for the buildings done. So if it were chosen not to do any of those, then that grant money would go away and we wouldn't.
And that grant money, is it only at 20%? Is that the one that's?
20% of that total grant can be used for ADA stuff. The rest has to go toward the energy improvements that their assessors find that could help us with our energy costs.
There's no match on that, right?
I don't think so. And if there were, it can also be ARPA to match. So it's, There's no such thing as free money, but
And what's in there has to be allocated by the 31st of December, right? This year.
The ARPA.
ARPA has to be allocated. Yeah, sorry,
yes.
wrong word.
They,
Allocated.
so Chris and I were just talking about it, and we're of the same understanding that there seems to be a new group of rules of acceptable uses of ARPA, and it sounds like whoever's in charge of that money, the Department of blah, blah, blah. It looks like we're gonna be able to use some of that money for this flood recovery stuff. So we're hopeful. So if we didn't have other things, by the end of the year, we can allocate it for that. If that's in fact, if we're both understanding correctly that that's a new and updated approved use of those funds.
We don't have that much ARPA money left though, do we?
We
Like
have over
30 or-
$70,000,
How much?
over
Oh,
70,000.
well, that's quite a bit.
Yeah. But I mean, there'll be 4,000 for this. I just purchased $6,000 worth of acoustic folding screens for over there. 2 of them are here. We have 3 more on the way. We spoke to someone that does consulting, sound consulting for spaces, and we sent him some detailed pictures and measurements of the town hall. So he made some suggestions about things that would help mitigate the sound issues in there. And rather than screwing things into our antique walls over there, we looked at some folding screens. So he pointed us in a couple of directions of things to look for. So that's how we settled on those. So those should help some. So we spent some money doing that. And like I said, we'll be paying for this. I'm trying to think what else. I can't think of what else. Oh, radios. Yay, radios. We have new radios. So we've used between 6,000 and 7,000 on radios in the last couple of weeks. So we have all new radios. And we desperately need a new, good, commercial grade copier printer that's wireless. So I'm shopping. But I will find out for the next meeting what the new rules are about using the money, what that looks like, and whether maybe it's to make up the gap. If FEMA's only covering 75% of what we document, maybe it can be used toward that 25% that we have to come up with, which would be a huge help. And in terms of money, the spreadsheets for the budget, I explained to a couple of people who were here first. So what I ran is just a report, it's year over year, comparing July 1 to today of this year to July 1 of this day last year. And then, so that's the first column is where we are year to date this year. Second column is where we were on the same date last year. The third column is that dollar change, and the fourth column is the percent change. So if it's a negative percent, that's good. It means we've spent less than we had in this time period last year. And if it's over, the flood expenses. So we use money for flood expenses from 3 different places, if you remember. Tax stabilization fund, you'll see those on page 7. Because that falls below, that's not our usual budget stuff because it doesn't come out of the general fund. And then what we used out of the highway fund is probably, it's not page 7, it's page 6. And then what we've had to take directly out of the general fund is gonna be page 4, maybe 5.
total in one place where the ocean spent so far?
There is not, but I can, last time I ran the numbers, we were at 725,000.
Well, there's some very radical percentage changes.
Your correspondence? I have an email.
771,557. Higher than I thought.
Get on pavement this week, right? Oh, yeah.
Paving next week.
This week, I think.
Oh, this week. So do you wanna do anything with this proposal for an ADA assessment?
Yeah. A motion to do it or can't do it?
Yeah, well, I move we go forward with that.
I'll second.
All in favor? I had an email from Barbara Noyes pulling on that they want every town in the state to make a declaration of inclusion. Which is
A lot of the
A declaration of inclusion?
that was something that was happening in a lot of our neighboring towns last year sometime before town meeting, I remember. And I remember thinking that it would have a lot more significance if it were something that were discussed at town meeting and voted on by the town rather than something a few people on the select board just said.
What exactly is that?
It says the town of Andover condemns racism, welcomes all persons regardless of race, color, religion, natural origin, sex, gender, identity or expression, age or disability, and wants everyone to feel safe and welcome in our community. As a town, we formally condemn all discrimination of its forms, commit to fair and equal treatment of everyone in our community, and will strive to ensure all of our actions, policies, and operating procedures reflect this commitment. I think we're bound to do that anyway.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't we be doing that anyway, as good neighbors and?
I think it's something that, since we're bound legally to do that anyway, if it's a symbolic kind of thing to be passed, I think it's something that should be brought up at town meeting and people kind of talk about it and
Yeah, I just have one question about that too, is it strictly symbolic? Or is it something where we would sort of sign something that says, yes, we'll do this, but then are we held to some different or, do you know what I mean by that? Like, is it,
I read some articles
is it legally
indicating that could be
binding in
true.
some way that changes what we're doing now?
I don't think it's legally binding at that stage, but they want you to implement.
Implement, right, what would we be
Get a
implementing?
committee together, study it in our town and suggest policies.
Ooh, yeah, suggesting policies, that's a change in that would be, again, I'm not saying I'm completely inclusive of everyone, but do we need more layers of kind of.
And
You can read about it, and
Yeah.
there are I did read about it a lot.
It
'cause
feels
I thought
like it
was
could
gonna
be,
come up.
I mean, if it's something where it's, but in other words, if it's something that we would all just stand up together and say, yes, absolutely. But if it's something that would then add a bunch of different policies to the town's responsibility around what we have to do, that's kind of a bigger thing.
And a lot of my observation about it is that it's asking us to be inclusive, but it's not really getting to the crux of the matter, which is socioeconomic inclusivity, because I think a lot of the barriers to people feeling comfortable and able to be part of Andover have to do with having the money to buy property or live
Right.
here. And that's kind of where I get hung up on it, to tell you the truth.
Right, because what if the policies would then lead us to have to somehow create the change to make it, I feel like we could get into a sticky situation maybe with that.
there's nothing we have the manpower to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
although like I said, again, I'm all for inclusion of every human being. And I think all of the people in Andover feel that way. You know, I think we already do feel that way. But if suddenly there were policies that we would have to figure out and uphold and make happen around getting that inclusivity happening, it might be a burden, even financially, on Andover in a way because of what Susan is saying about
Yeah.
we don't have the infrastructure to sort of make something happen if suddenly we had to. Interesting. I guess I need to read more into that, but that would
I
be
need
my
to read
question.
a lot more about it.
Is this email from an Andover resident or
No.
just from a state organization?
It's not a state organization, it's
Just
an
state
independent
organization.
organization.
Oh, an independent. Okay. Yeah, I need to look more
That's
into
even
it.
more.
He's just
Yeah.
presenting the letter tonight.
Right,
as
right, right,
correspondence.
yeah.
I just didn't know if it
It's
came from
interesting. That's
somebody
like
in Andover.
a lot to think about for sure. And I
Would you
will
mind
go.
having Jeanette send that to all of us?
If she's got that, I'll have to do it.
Yeah, I thought that's what, you just have to send it to her to send it to all of us, right?
A carbon copy around it.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can read about.
Yeah.
I really thought it was going to come up at town meeting last year
Oh,
because
okay.
Chester and I can't remember what towns.
I mean, to adopt that declaration, just the tip of the iceberg.
I think it's kind of meaningless if just a few of us do it. I think it would be a very meaningful conversation to have at a town meeting that included like a large proportion of the residents and taxpayers.
Anyway,
Okay.
who's correspondence to this?
So I move that we go to.
There's a few things that I think would be nice to go into. One in particular is, I'd like a little more information on what Jonathan's job description is, on what he does compared to the lister, and compared to his lister position. Does he do additional things? And I'm just wondering if Jeanette has a better idea on what he does.
Well, he's an assistant.
He's your assistant
clerk.
He's
as
the
well.
assistant town clerk.
Okay.
So what that means is, he runs the office when I'm not here.
Phone calls.
Phone calls,
Questions.
emails, questions.
He runs this office
He runs
a month
the
a year,
office.
correct? While you're on vacation?
Right,
4 weeks a year, right? So he is the town
He
clerk
is the town
4
clerk
weeks
for
a year.
4 weeks.
It may not be 4 straight weeks or a week, like you said, a day here and a day there, but they
Or
add
if
up.
you're sick.
right, yeah.
Absolutely.
And does, on a daily basis when he is here, is he only doing lister work if you're here, or is he also doing other work in?
It depends. If Fran is here, then he's pretty focused on lister work, because she will direct and have him working on different things, or they'll be working on things together. Unless, I step out and the phone rings and then they would answer the phone, or if someone comes in and needed his particular expertise on a boundary something or a genealogical something, I might interrupt their lister work and ask him if he could help that person with that thing that they're looking for. So it's flexible for sure.
Right.
It depends. If the last few weeks he's really been focused on auditing, getting those tax maps, the new tax maps audited, so we could get them back and get actual printed new tax maps finished. So that's really been his focus. And he and Fran just keep up with sales of properties and things like that. But he can work on that even if he needs to be running the office. He can be working on tax maps or working on lister-oriented stuff, but still answer the phones or stop and answer people's questions if I'm not here, that kind of thing.
Okay, you're our town treasurer as well as the town clerk?
That's correct.
So is there just policy-wise, do you get paid the same amount for
I don't
different
think we
jobs?
can talk
Oh, I'm
about
sorry.
that.
Okay, sorry.
I don't think we
Sorry.
Well, I can just give you
But is there a general policy that you pay the
So the town of
same?
Andover,
Yeah.
many years ago, voted to, instead of having a part-time clerk and a part-time treasurer, voted, am I right, Chris? The town voted on it to make it, to put the two together so that it would be a full-time job.
Yeah.
Because it had been done by part-time people, and there were 2 part-time people doing clerk and assistant, and a couple part-time people doing this, and it finally was combined into one full-time job. So that's what I get paid for, is that full-time position.
So correct me if I shouldn't ask this question, but if there's a town employee doing different jobs, do they need to be paid the same amount per hour for their different jobs?
Not necessarily, and certainly QuickBooks is set up so that there could be.
But that was my real question.
Yep, so they're just as a good example of that, Jonathan agreed to be the zoning board clerk some time ago, and he's paid a monthly stipend for doing that work, and that's set up separately in QuickBooks.
I see, okay.
But that doesn't include what he does for you and the
No,
zoning.
that's a separate
right, that's
line
a
item in
whole sep-
QuickBooks, and it's strictly just being their clerk. He proofreads agendas and minutes, he gathers paperwork
Right.
here because it got to a point where there was so much of that coming in, and the building permits with all the real estate sales, and there was so much going on here that I couldn't be Joe's secretary anymore.
Right. And that's not part of the 4 weeks that he fills
No,
in
I
for
mean,
you, or-
again, because things can
Right.
be fluid, if there's something that needs to be done, certainly he would put down someone's subdivision application so he could answer the phone or deal with customers who are here in front of us taking a tax payment or whatever. So what I would say is, if someone comes in or the phone is ringing with someone who needs help with town business, that becomes the first priority.
Right.
If he's looking at an application or gathering paperwork for Joe or proofreading minutes, that gets set aside and things
Right.
get reprioritized to whatever's most important at the moment.
He wears many hats.
Yes. So because it's a stipend, it's just a monthly flat fee. So it's not like he's documenting, oh, I spent 10 minutes proofreading zoning minutes and then I was on the phone with Joe for 15 minutes about this subdivision application. It's just a monthly fee, and hopefully it covers the amount of time he spends doing those tasks and attending their once a month meeting, if they have one. If they don't have any active business, they don't have a meeting. And he sets up the Zoom for them, he's there to help Okemo Valley get everything going and all of that. So it's very much a separate job, separately paid, and maybe that's something to consider.
And then our former lister, I guess we can't ask about the wages of how they compare with, I guess we can't ask that right here.
You're having an executive session, so I can print out the spreadsheet I keep of historical wages and provide that to you before we all leave the meeting.
Perfect.
If you'd like.
Okay.
If that would help.
All right, so I move that we go to executive session.
I second that.
Who's in favor?
Aye.
I